Welcome to the Community Wellness Network. I'm Dr. Brandy Victory, and I'm excited to share with you our next highlighted practitioner. This is Shari Wagner. She's a personal trainer, and she's in the Community Wellness Network with us. And she's got lots to share this month. So help me celebrate her and welcome her as our highlighted practitioner. Welcome to the group.
Well, thank you so much for having me and having me as one of the highlighted practitioners as well. I'm super excited to share more this month.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to share her work because first of all, she's helped me a lot. I've had some shoulder injuries that I was a little bit nervous about, and I wasn't able to do a lot of the things I like to do in my life. And she helped me get back to working out on my pole and doing all the things I love. So what I love about Shari's style is that she meets you where you're at, and then she helps you take your next step. And for me, baby steps are best. So Shari, you want to tell us a little bit about what exactly personal training is about?
Yeah. So personal training is truly that, personal. So it's all about the client that I'm working with and what their needs are. So based on goals, prior injury history, prior exercise history, there's so many factors that we look at. And I work with people remotely, and so what that means, like a more specific explanation, is I do app-based personal training. So I have an app that delivers the workouts to the clients, and it tells them exactly what they need to do for every workout. And then with every exercise, there's a video attached to it and shows them exactly how to do that exercise properly.
Awesome.
And then, based on all the things I learn about the client through our consultation and as we work together, I customize things further for them and their needs, meaning if you have a specific modification to a specific exercise, that gets included in your program. And, I tell you everything from how many sets and reps to do to how much rest to take, suggested weights, how to progress your weights, kind of working together to figure out when it's time to make progressions and when it's time to maybe dial back a little bit. There are so many nuances to personal training that I think a lot of people don't necessarily know about, but it's all about like smart programming and working smarter, not harder, which you've, I'm sure, heard that term before.
Yeah, for sure.
So we always want to work smarter, not harder when it comes to our exercise, because working harder and harder and harder is not necessarily the way.
Yeah, I agree. And I've had lots of different kinds of coaches in my life. Like, I always have coaches in my life of some sort. And I've worked with different types of practitioners in the training world, in the personal training world, everything from fitness and posing for fitness competitions to anatomy and motion, which is very specific, to just really generalized PT, which has also been some of kind of what I might think of as personal training and to some degree. But then the work you do is a little bit different because if it's more of a generalized PT experience, what I found is we would unwind some problem, like say my hip injury, but it would also set me up for injury in the future, which is why I had to work with her on my shoulders. And what you seem to be doing is like taking a look at the whole body, the whole picture, and taking into account where somebody's at to help them progress forward.
Yeah. I've had some people approach me about, I want to just strengthen XYZ body part. And I don't work with people that way. Because we don't, just like you were saying, we don't want to work on just one specific body part. We want a whole body approach because, the foot is connected to the ankle, which is connected to the shin, etc.
Yeah.
So we really want to look at everything as whole, full body. And yeah, the approach I take is a little bit different in that I work with people on mobility and strength and looking at I can't necessarily assess imbalances the way that a physical therapist would assess an imbalance, but in other ways in terms of, certain muscles may be firing or not firing. This particular exercise is meant to be felt in the glutes. Oh, but you don't feel it in the glutes. So what do we do to get you to feel it in the place that you're supposed to feel it more?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like corrective types of exercises that I do with people. It's not just about, here, just deadlift. It's, looking at movement patterns to get us to do things properly, and so that our bodies can stay as healthy and as functional as long as possible.
Love that. Love that. Healthy and functional as long as possible. Like, that's, in an ideal world, we're all moving ourselves towards that in whatever way, whatever it takes for us to get that right. And movement is essential for us to be able to attain that and have a level of health as we age. You know, I've sent patients to her, they love her, but there's also, quite a few women that I speak to who are like, I don't know, they don't really like exercising, or they're scared, or they don't know what to expect. And, what I love is that Shari is also specializes in working with women over 50 and osteoporosis. And she also has some education in hormonal and how to help the body hormonally with nutrition and movement and things like that. And could you speak a little bit to that and help people maybe get a little bit more comfortable with this idea?
Yeah. So yes, I have a certification that is a menopause coaching specialist certification. That's on top of all of my other movement certifications that I have. And so I love working with women going through the menopausal transition, because I have been there myself very recently, in fact. I am now postmenopausal, and,
You made it!
I made it. And, leading up to being postmenopausal through the perimenopause transition, things were changing and acting different in my body. And that's really kind of what prompted me to get that certification was I don't necessarily know what to do with myself, let alone another person. So I better, when I saw this certification, I just jumped on it, because I thought, well, not only will I help myself, but I'll be able to help lots of other people too, because pretty much my average client is over 45. And I just love working with women specifically through that transition, because it can be such an empowering feeling to feel how to be strong for the first time. Because sometimes I am working with somebody who has never lifted weights, and maybe they get an osteoporosis diagnosis, and they read or hear from their doctor, hopefully, that they need to lift weights as one of the things to help combat it, and they never have, and so they don't know where to start. So that's sort of where I come in, and that's one of my specialties, is working with women who have never lifted a weight before and showing them really how to lift properly so that they don't get hurt. And yes, a safety environment is paramount for me, because what's the purpose of just like beating on our bodies to then like have them break?
I know.
We really want to build our bodies, and not to say that things aren't going to go wrong. I mean, they will. I'm dealing with that myself.
We all do.
Sometimes happen. The way it was once said to me, that I just love the explanation of, is if you move and use your body, it's not a matter of if you'll get injured, it's a matter of when you'll get injured. But your body bounces back so much faster from injury when you do have strength and flexibility and mobility in all of your joints and muscles. So I love working with women in that population, because sometimes I am teaching them how to find this in their bodies for the first time. And even if it's not for the first time, maybe it's been a long time, or maybe things are just different now. And what do I do now kind of feelings.
I was just actually at the hot springs last weekend, and there was a lady there, and I'm pretty sure she was under 40, but she was right there at the 40 mark. And literally, when she would walk, her legs would shake, and you could tell that there was quite a bit. She wasn't like really big, but there was quite a bit of fat on her body and no muscle tone, right? And I was like, wow, she's not even 40, and she's liable to be in a wheelchair not long from now, because she hasn't strengthened her body up. Like, she hasn't even strengthened the primary things that move her body from one place to another. And what happens, I think it's probably so common today, because we're all sitting behind a computer and longer hours, and we're getting more blue light, and we're not sleeping well, so we're not restoring and building those. And then now what, right? We find ourselves in a predicament.
And I mean, that's true. And bodies are a use it or lose it proposition, basically.
Yeah.
Another little saying I love is when you rest, you rust. And,
That's where I need work.
Yeah. I believe that any woman over the age of 45 can probably attest to this. If you sit for a while and then you get up, you might feel a little rusty when you first get up. And then once you start moving, it's like, oh, okay, I just loosened up. Yeah. So that to me is like a good explanation or a good like real life thing that most people feel. Mm-hmm. And so if all we do is sit all day long forever and ever and ever, we're going to rust and things are going to lock up. And,
that's right.
A lot of times people feel like I got injured. I wasn't even doing anything. Well, it's because you weren't doing anything that you got injured. Motion is lotion. It helps with the synovial fluid in our joints.
Yeah. I like that.
Motion is lotion. So, if you think about like a joint, like think like specifically a ball and socket joint, and you're moving it, it helps lubricate the joints.
Wow, that's cool.
So, So like, sense. Somebody who exercises their whole life is less prone to having like bone on bone types of situations. If they do develop arthritis, they might not get bone on bone with it.
Wow.
Because motion is lotion.
Interesting. That's really cool to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that in chiropractic. Like when I was I was working at the Joint when I first moved to Colorado, and I was seeing up to somewhere between 30 and 60 patients a day. And I did this for years. And what I saw is that the patients who would come in and say that they've had chiropractic care since they were a children or a young person, their bodies were so much different and resilient. They were so much more resilient than the people who were in their 50s and 60s and have an injury and come in to get adjusted. It was a very stark difference to the longevity and the sustainability of their resiliency when they've actually been getting chiropractic care, which sounds like is similar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Exactly.
And so have you seen people recover from osteoporosis with exercise?
I have. I wouldn't necessarily call it recovery from per se, but you're building bone.
Yeah.
So strength training particularly builds bone.
Yeah.
There are a couple of other things doing plyometrics, which are jumping exercises. So anything literal impact, but that's not always appropriate for everybody.
Sure. Yeah.
So strength training is appropriate for almost everybody. There's a few situations here and there I've come across where it's not appropriate, but we're talking usually really extreme situations. I mean, obviously somebody in a wheelchair who can't use their legs can't use their legs.
Right, of course.
Or if they can't use their arms or their legs, then they can't. So that's an extreme example of that, but there's very few things that can't be helped or worked around when it comes to strength training. So literally the act of holding a weight builds the bones. And then moving a weight through space, if you think about all the different movements that you do, overhead lifts, and I can't show anything lower body here, but squats and deadlifts and lunges and like all the things that you're doing while you're holding weights literally builds bone. So I myself have osteopenia, which is low bone density. It's not osteoporosis low, but it's low, and lower than normal low. And I reversed the osteopenia in my spine in the first 1 to 2 years of exercise.
Cool.
And the osteopenia in my hip, the score goes up a little more slowly on the hip because it's such a
dense.
big, but it has improved quite a bit, like 0.5 of a point, I believe.
Wow.
So I haven't reversed it yet, but it's going in the right direction.
That's right.
And truly, as long as it holds steady, that's considered improvement.
Improvement, yeah.
So I have done it myself. My mother reversed osteoporosis in her spine. Completely reversed it.
Wow.
She didn't reverse it in her hip.
Did you train her?
Uh-huh.
Oh, even better. That's so cool.
And she was 77 when she started training with me.
Get out.
So she was doing like little bitty weights and like doing the exact same core exercises every single
Never
day.
changing anything. Yeah.
And you have to change stuff.
Yeah.
But, so she never like really seriously exercised until she was 77 and started training with me. And in 1 year, she made those changes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Impressive.
And then several other clients I've worked with have improved their
And is that why you got into this training?
That was not why I got into it. Yes and no. It's what prompted me to finally get serious about exercise. Because I was, 20 some odd years on again, off again with exercise. I never stuck with anything. I would always just get really bored or I would get injured. Not like serious injuries, but like neck issues, chronic neck and back issues I've had, and my muscles would just like lock up, and I now know it was because I was lifting improperly, not using proper form. So I was using like my trapezius muscles in my neck like way too much, and getting myself completely jacked up by using these muscles instead of the lat muscles in my back and all the supporting muscles.
Hence the reason why you need a coach.
That's the reason why you need a coach. So that was my like 20-year on again, off again thing. And kettlebells is what got me into regular exercise. So that is one of my passions. I don't train people specifically with kettlebells, but that is like one of my, personal joys and the thing that got me into a lifetime now of fitness.
That's cool.
So for me, getting the osteopenia diagnosis, you would think would like right away get me into fitness, but it took me a little bit, a couple of years to like find the thing that stuck with me. And then once I found the thing that stuck with me and I saw the improvement, then it was like, okay, well,
this makes sense.
Yeah. I can't stop this. And at that point I had fallen in love with what I was doing and, decided I wanted to become my career. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you have different tools that you can share with different people so that people can find their thing that might be the turn on for them.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So what would I want to be listening for when I hear women speaking that are like, oh, I should tell them about Shari and connect them to you?
Yeah. One of the ways that I'm becoming a little well known for is an osteoporosis diagnosis.
Okay.
Because I speak a lot about the benefits and why women need to care about their bones. My own personal story of having osteopenia myself, but really one of my whys of why I don't want to get osteoporosis is my grandmother had it. And I saw what happened with her.
Yeah.
The most impactful story was in her, she had 5 gazillion broken bones. I can't even remember all of them. But one of the ones I remember the most was Grandma shattered her wrist. And I'm like, how did Grandma shatter her wrist? This was like a woman who was kind of chair-bound. So how did Grandma shatter her wrist? Yeah. Well, an aide in assisted living took her by the arm and assisted her up, and her wrist shattered just by somebody helping her out of a chair.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so my why is that will not be me. Like I have the power to make sure that my 95 years old does not look like that.
Yeah, amen, sister.
And really that happened a little bit younger than 95, but she did live to be 95, which is great, but it wasn't a quality 95 by any stretch. Not by my standards of what quality would look like.
So I'm hearing osteoporosis.
Yeah, so an osteoporosis diagnosis.
And honestly, anyone who's in menopause.
Yeah.
Right?
Because, a woman in menopause and everything's changing, and, hey, I keep reading that lifting weights would really help me, but I don't know where to start. That's a perfect thing to listen for, because it's usually the people that don't know where to start or where to go and what to do initially.
Because people don't necessarily want to go into a gym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And truly, with how I work with people remotely through the app, people can work out wherever they want. So if someone belongs to a gym, they can work out at their gym. And they just have me on their phone with them in their pocket.
That's cool. Yeah.
Or, like, I have a lot of people who work at home. I'd say the majority of my clients work out at home. They have built a small home gym with,
Cool.
you don't need a ton of equipment. That's one of the reasons why I love kettlebells is you really don't need a lot of equipment. You can get a lot out of just a few. But truly, I do have some clients that have more full-on gyms with, a squat rack or whatever.
Yeah.
But, you can work out wherever you want. And so if you're somebody who doesn't like the gym, you can build a little home gym and never have to go to the gym and get everything that you would get by going to the gym.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, we are here in the Community Wellness Network, and I'm curious because we have a lot of practitioners in our community. Like, what kind of practitioner would be a good power partner for you?
Yeah. Truly, anyone in the wellness-based industry is a good referral. But some specifics would be physical therapists, because a lot of times clients don't know what to do when they're released from physical therapy.
Okay.
So it's sort of like continuation of care in a way,
Gotcha.
or just continuation of building whatever they worked on building, as well as the rest of your body.
Yeah.
And so they're a good referral. Anybody who does body work specifically, like acupuncturist, massage therapist, types of people would be great. I'd love to get some referral partners with some doctors who work specifically with women in menopause, whether it be for hormone therapy or just general health.
Gotcha.
Because to me, doctors should be prescribing exercise to their patients if they don't already exercise.
Yeah.
My own doctor, I know, prescribes exercise because she tells me all the time. Well, normally I would tell people.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell you.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Good. So how many years is it going to take me to get arms like that?
Oh man, that is such a loaded question. It's not a fair question.
Okay.
Everybody builds muscle at different rates. So, and it all, there's so many factors involved in how much muscle you build, how much you see the muscle that you've built. So how much you see the muscle you've built is leanness or body fat.
Yeah.
So how much body fat you have. And when you get into that perimenopause age, it becomes harder to burn body fat. Like I used to be a lot leaner than I am now. But I also build muscle really easily. I'm very lucky that way. I'm just, it's genetics.
Okay.
Like,
Fair
so
enough.
for me, I build muscle really easy, so I can't say, oh, I can train you for this amount of time and you'll have
And
arms
you have
looking
beautiful
like mine.
arms, yeah.
Yeah.
We have to just love our arms and then be healthy and well as we can by training and being strong so we feel great.
And consistency in training is really the key.
Okay. Yeah.
So, you can't really work out like 1 time this week, 2 times next week, 0 times the following week. Like, it definitely takes that consistency of showing up week in and week out. It doesn't have to be 5 days a week. I strength train 3 days a week. So
okay, that's good to know.
2 to 3 days a week is kind of like the really good sweet spot of getting enough bang for your buck and being consistent with it, definitely. And then, just knowing that you have to be able to push yourself a little bit. And I say that with caution because a lot of times when people hear the term push themselves, they go too far.
Yeah.
So
That'd be me.
So pushing yourself meaning, can I do a little bit more than I did last week or last month? Not expecting PRs every single time you do an exercise. We can't always hit personal bests. And, we just have to be, again, like smart about it. And that's where me kind of guiding programming helps. Because I will help people be progressive with their programming so they don't get stuck in a certain place for too long.
Yeah.
And, you have to be a little strategic about it sometimes and see what the body's doing. Sometimes the body screams really loud, I need a break. Mm-hmm. And then dialing back for a week or 2 and then hitting it back again can actually give you more gains.
Yeah, I've seen that with my own self. Like there was a time when I would say, okay, I'm going to start this new diet and I'm going to start this new exercise routine. And like 3 days later, I forgot where the gym is and my head's in a bag of Oreos, like seriously, like that was a time that actually happened over and over and over again. And there was this mindset that I had that I was broken and I wasn't capable and it was never going to happen. Like really, because after you go through that over and over again, you can't seem to get it. But then I got a trainer, right? And then having a trainer in my life was just such a big deal because now I had somebody who got me, who could hold me accountable, who I was showing up with, and not for, but showing up with, right? And so I was able to take more concerted responsibility and sustainability in my workouts. And now it's a lifestyle. Like I don't need a personal trainer unless I have an injury. I can get in there. But it took me a while, right? And I needed someone like you to help me with that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to say or let our listeners know about before we go?
I don't think so.
Okay.
That's so good. Just lift heavy weights.
Lift.
I do have one thing to say since I just said that.
Okay.
Okay. So I always say lift heavy, and I think that intimidates a lot of people. But let's quantify what that means.
Okay.
So lifting heavy is, heavy is relative. So heavy for me is going to be different than heavy for you versus different than heavy for the next person.
Yeah.
So you can think about a repetition range of about 5 to 8 repetitions. If you're doing 8 repetitions, 3 sets. If you're doing 5 repetitions, 5 sets. So a weight that feels heavy to you for 5 sets at 5 reps.
Love it.
And that means that you're being honest with yourself about what feels heavy to you. So it has to be doable with good form, with 1 to 2 reps left in the bank. So meaning like, well, I could actually lift this for 7, but 5 is kind of my sweet spot.
Okay.
So I'm going to stick at 5.
Got it.
And being honest with yourself that, no, I can't actually be banging out 10 with this weight. So if you can be like banging out 10 or more reps, it's actually not heavy. So
good to know.
So heavy with good form. And so
so
that takes some of the intimidation factor out of it, I think, is understanding that heavy is relative and you're not going to go and, try and lift an exorbitant amount the first few times.
Which might have come to my injury and,
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very excited to highlight you this month. And if you would, just give her some love down below. And we'll be having conversations throughout the month. So definitely if we spark some interest, jump in on the conversation. We'd love to have it with you.
Yeah.